On July 11, 2024, the Supreme Court of Nigeria delivered a landmark judgment affirming the financial autonomy of Nigeria's 774 local government councils. The court also rejected the stance of state governments that sought to dissolve democratically elected local government councils, and so since then states have raced to conduct elections at the local councils to meet up with that obligation. Local government autonomy ensures that the delivery of services by government at the lowest level is met at that point where the center is already saturated. And so my name is Leah, and on this episode this week, we shall be examining the process and its workability. So welcome to The Policy with Leah. We begin the business of the day from the trends table.
Global commodity prices are set to tumble to a 5-year low in 2025 amid an oil glut that is so large that is likely to limit the price effects even of a wider conflict in the Middle East. This is according to the World Bank's latest commodity markets outlook. From 2024 through 2026, global commodity prices are projected to plummet by nearly 10%. Global food prices are set to fall by 9% this year, an additional 4% in 2025 before leveling off. The bank's outlook expects that by next year, global oil supply will exceed demand by an average of 1.2 million barrels per day, a glut that has been exceeded only twice before during the pandemic-related shutdowns in 2020 and the 1998 oil price collapse. The new oversupply partly reflects a major shift in China, where oil demand has essentially flatlined since 2023 amid a slowdown in industrial production and an increase in sales of electric vehicles and trucks powered by liquefied natural gas (LNG). The National Insurance Commission (NICOM) has sacked the board and management of African Alliance Insurance plc, one of Nigeria's oldest life assurance companies, following years of insolvency and failure to meet the obligations of annuitants and policyholders. The Commission then appointed an interim management board comprising of Dr. Haruna Mustafa, Chairman, Mr. Jacob Hehabo, MD CEO, Mr. Wasiu Amao, Executive Director Technical, Ms. Oremeyi Longe, Executive Director Finance, with Mr. Anthony Achebe and Hajia Halimatu M. Kabib as non-executive directors to manage the affairs of African Alliance Insurance plc. NICOM in a statement said the interim management board will oversee the company's operations, ensure compliance with regulatory requirements, and implement necessary reforms. The Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission (FCCPC) has issued a stern warning to banks in Nigeria regarding the disruptions to online banking services. FCCPC's Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Tunji Bello, in a statement, emphasized that the disruptions have negatively impacted millions with serious implications for individuals and businesses. He expressed concern that these disruptions hinder customers from accessing funds, making payments, and completing essential transactions, adding that the Commission is currently collaborating with relevant regulatory authorities and financial institutions to address the service disruptions and ensure consumer protections are enforced. The Commission pointed out that under the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act of 2018, customers have rights that ensure fair and accountable service delivery, including the right to quality service. The Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative (NEITI) has revealed that Nigeria's solid mineral sector has made a direct financial contribution of 1.137 trillion naira to the federal, state and local governments over a 16-year period from 2007 to 2023. NEITI, in its 2023 Solid Minerals Audit Report in Abuja, revealed that the sector accounted for 0.83% of Nigeria's GDP in 2022, slightly decreasing to 0.75% in 2023. Orji Ogbonnaya, NEITI's Executive Secretary, who presented the report, emphasized its role in tracking the solid mineral sector's contributions to Nigeria's revenue.
Towards an efficient subnational government level is our focus today, and here is that conversation. Following the Supreme Court ruling that local governments in the country gain autonomy financially, states across the country have raced to conduct local government elections and, of course, to ensure that they get smooth transition and seamless service delivery. However, there's a dimension to this because the public is witnessing a kind of system that is not so appreciative. The general outlook of the local government elections is fraught with complaints and, in some instances, concerns. I'm being joined in this conversation by Khadijat Akewushola. She is the lead State Assembly's Business Environment Roundtable at the NESG Center, and she also leads the State Assembly's Environment Business Roundtable Saver at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG. It's nice to have you join me for this conversation.
Nice to be here.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Now, before we delve into the issue at hand, what is the position of the Constitution regarding separation of powers and basically the local governments?
What the Constitution did was to establish each tier of government under Nigeria. So what we have is an establishment of the federal government. We then have a state government. Then we have under Section 7 of the Constitution that we should have democratically elected local government councils. So the Constitution recognized the existence, the Constitution established and recognized the existence of a democratically elected local government council. So that's the basis of the local government authority that we now have. The Constitution also recognized the existence of 774 of them across 36 states of Nigeria. So yes, the tier of government as it is right now is an establishment of the grand norm, which is the Constitution, and the basis is in the Constitution. So the power is well separated.
But it will look like over the years, and I mean this is a statement of fact, over the years, that these local governments were being run by the states, and then there came the almighty Jack, where the states determined how the local governments would perform, clearly eliminating the roles to a large extent of local governments. So with what we have on the ground now, what are those responsibilities, if I may put it that way, of the local government councils?
Okay, so before I go into their roles and responsibility, which is also constitutionally backed. The way we have the current structure of state-running local government is as a result of the situation of their finances as contained in the Constitution. So what the Constitution provided for, and I think Section 162, is that allocation of revenue shall be done between federal, state, and local government. So what is due to federal will be allocated to the federal government. Then what is due to the state will be paid to the state government. However, what is due to the local government is paid into what is referred to as the state joint local government account. So as a result of the complexity of the local government, I think the idea behind it is that instead of us to call 774 local government and we're giving money to each of them, let's have a state joint local government account. And then we pay all what is due to, if a state has 16 local government, all what is due to each of these local governments will be paid into it, but not for the state to keep, but rather for the state to then distribute to this local government. That was the provision of the Constitution. And it is in order to fulfill the role, just like you asked, that are stated in the Constitution. Local government is the closest to the people. And if you see, Nigeria is vast in terms of population, even in terms of space. It's a very large country. So it's important. The reason why we have the structure that we have is in order to ensure that governance, development gets to the remotest of our areas. So it gets to the remote areas, which is why we then have the local government to say, oh, you're closest to the people. Then after local government, we then have state. Then after state, we then have federal. So federal is still further than state, and state is still further than local government. Even within local government, we have councils, we have wards. All of this is to ensure that everybody is benefiting from government as much as possible. So what we have is local governments have been given some roles and responsibilities as contained in the 4th schedule to the Constitution. They are responsible for maintaining markets, they are responsible for numbering houses, they are responsible for providing basic health care, they are responsible for providing basic adult and even children education, they are responsible for providing slaughterhouses, maintaining public sewages, maintaining public conveniences. All of these things that make life easy for people are things that the central government, the federal government cannot handle all at the same time. But then it has been delegated to the local government in a way that they are able to carry on this. Then you ask yourself, how many of those things are actually functional in Nigeria?
Exactly.
And if they are not functional, it is as a result of something is broken somewhere. So if we have created a system to ensure that everybody reap the dividends of governance, and some people are being neglected. We have remote areas without access to water. We have places where they do not have basic health facility. And those places are under one ward, which is under one council, which is under one local government. And people are having to move from those distances to go to the state capital to access healthcare, to access education. Then there's something broken somewhere, which means that it is not enough to give them roles and responsibility. You must equip them with what is required to fulfill that role, their roles and responsibilities. And I think that was what led to the Supreme Court taking that decision of these people are going to have their financial autonomy. The idea was not for states to keep their money. So yes, Constitution provides for the establishment of a joint state account for local government. But if that is not working, in the sense that instead of distributing this money to them, you are keeping the money and you're then saying that you are fulfilling the role of the local government. So what the state are saying is that we're using this money to actually take care of the things that local governments are doing or they are meant to do. But then that's not the rationale behind the establishment of the local government. Local government were not established to be subsumed or for states to carry on their activity. So if this idea of joint local government account is not working, then let's get them their money directly. It's a very inconvenient option because that means for each local government, their account is with whoever is accountant general, whoever is responsibility for allocation, then they send to each of them. It may not be a convenient administrative process, but it's definitely going to be an impactful process in the sense that people are getting their money and we no longer have the case of we're unable to carry out this function simply because we don't have access to funds.
Are you worried about the kinds of processes we've seen in the elections that have taken place over time? One party wins every local government, every ward, and then you begin to ask yourself, is it not the same thing that we're running away from?
Okay, so first of all, I'm happy that the elections are even happening.
Okay.
I think that is a significant step towards even getting to where we want to get to, because you would remember that the reason why every state is suddenly conducting local government election is because they spent long years. I know states that have spent close to 4 years, no local government election. What they had for each local government were caretaker committees. And that idea that you can leave out what the Constitution has regarded as democratically elected local government council and replace it with a local government caretaker committee was stifling our growth, our democratic situation, because that means a particular tier of government is totally scrapped and replaced with what we can consider as executive committee or caretaker committee. But then the Supreme Court in a judgment has mandated that state governors or state houses of assembly can no longer legislate on the removal of local government chairmen, and they cannot replace democratically elected local government councils with caretaker committees. So caretaker committees are regarded as illegal, and as a result, everybody needs to start conducting the election. So I think the fact that we got to a stage where everybody was conducting election is a good move compared to where we were in 2019. Because there was a particular state where, upon the resumption of a particular, I think, governor, they had to remove all the local government council chairmen and then replace them with caretaker committee. And since then, up until this year, before they eventually had the election, which was triggered by the judgment. So yes, Nigeria is a multi-party, democratic, governed state. So we cannot overlook the implications that politics comes with. It's a good step that we're even getting to a place where people are able to play in that political field. So at the local government election, other parties were able to bring their candidates, other parties were able to also contest for posts, people were able to come out. Now it may look like a particular party is getting all the seats. But with the progress we've made, it won't stay that way for long. Because imagine that being the appointment of a caretaker committee. That means a party doesn't even have a say. But we are at the point where we are running the elections, but we still think it's not transparent enough. We'll get to the point where we are able to criticize the extent of our election transparency, and we're able to demand for much more accountable electoral process. So yes, it's worrisome to have an election result that may or may not reflect the will of the people, but at the same time, we're grateful for a position where we've moved from an handpicked local government council to a democratically elected local government council, which was the intention and the express reading of the Constitution.
Looking at the current picture of the nation, can local government councils survive without federal allocations? Without
it?
Yes.
Okay, I think to an extent, we every tier of government, definitely there's some income there's some revenue that, even if it's generated within a particular territory, within a state, it still goes directly to the federal government. We have the company's income tax,
yes.
We have the value added tax, and some other taxes that goes directly to the federal government. So definitely the reasoning behind providing for allocation to state and local government councils as a result of this central income that goes into federation account. So every Nigerian tier of government need allocation to be able to run. The next question then is, can they survive solely on this allocation?
Yes.
Which is then the question of to what extent they cannot. If we say that a local government is relying solely on allocation from federal government, we would even say that that local government is not living up to its full potential. Because the idea of your existence, your democratic nature, your independent nature, and the fact that you're getting funds is such that you're able to promote your own local development. And one thing true development will come with is that financial growth. So if we look back to their roles, to their functions, we'll see that they are responsible for licensing bicycles, for licensing deaths and beds. They are responsible for maintaining slaughterhouses, for regulating marketplaces. All of these things, if they are done adequately, they are sources of internally generated revenue for the local government. In the long run, or even in the medium term, can they survive on it solely? No. every local government must be looking for, with what they have given me, how can I boost development in my local government in a way that can then increase our internally generated revenue, and we can then influence more development. And I know that with time, we're definitely going to get there, because like I said, we have within one state, maybe 16 to 20 or even 30 in some instances, local government.
As much as 44.
So as much as, yes. So when we get to a situation where one local government is doing well with their funds, another will also be challenged, just the way we have states saying, oh, this is the index and this is what Lagos is doing, how can you do the same, and so on. So definitely we'll get there. But they definitely need to boost development in a way that federal government allocation is just a plus and not the main or the whole revenue that they will be able to use to drive development.
Okay, a lot of Nigerians are not happy with the state governments, how they've run the local government councils over the years, and can we make meaningful progress? You've spoken about that. Then we're looking at also the question of, should there be a tweaking, that there should be a supervisory body, or INEC takes over running elections at that level? Would that be something in your view that should happen?
So what I consider the most supervisory board, because I mean Nigeria is built on a lot of check and balances here and there, building systems to look over another system. But we've seen over the years that it doesn't necessarily translate to check and balance. To have the system in place may not necessarily translate to check it. I think the highest form of check and balances are the citizens themselves. So we are the ones in the best position to advocate for transparency, to advocate for accountability in the processes of our governance. So when we say things like, we need to have another independent body, the intentions sometimes are beautiful, but implementation may not be as smooth as we think it is. And a lot of instances, we may now find that we're even creating more problems in the process of solving one. So yes, state independent electoral bodies may not be what we want them to be right now, but can it be better? Yes. But do we need an entirely different level to take over it? I don't think that is the intention of the Constitution, especially because the ability of the state's independent electoral bodies to conduct election for local government is a provision of the Constitution. I found, at least in my young age, to see that Nigerians' attempt at replacing usually do not translate to the problem, to solving the problem. So yes, let's advocate for more transparency, let's advocate for more accountability. But you would agree with me that even at the national level, the transparency and accountability of electoral processes are still not free from criticism.
Can we get this system to work better? How do we strengthen it?
Yes, we can. Electoral bodies are independent for a reason. I think when we say things are independent in Nigeria, we should make sure they're truly independent and not independent as part of their names. So they should be free from all sorts of influences, external, internal, in a way that they are able to completely focus on their mandate and deliver on their mandate, irrespective of who is not favored by it. We can also get things to work by advocating for it, which is an example of what we're doing. When we see that things have not gone well, let's advocate for it to get better. There are people who have lost elections and they've gone on tribunals and they eventually got their seat back. So all of this is towards enhancing transparency and accountability. The civil society that watch elections, that ensures that elections are transparently done. Just like we're dealing with, not just in Nigeria, Africa development generally. In fact, global development generally have come with its own challenges and the slow pace of improvement of processes. But can we get there? If we don't stop on the effort, definitely we can.
Sincerely, thank you, Khadijat, for sharing your insight and your time with us.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Have you ever heard of the boots theory? Well, we shall be simplifying that for you, and from there we head to the markets. That is the much we can take on this episode of the program. Don't forget that for more market rates, you can always log on to our sister website. It is www.marketniger.tv. We have all the details for you there. And until we come your way again, same time next week, don't forget to keep in touch with us by sending in your comments, questions, and suggestions to help us serve you better. And of course, my name is Leah today. Have a lovely November to remember, and God bless Nigeria.